Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of the podcast. My name is Warren, and I will be your host for this show with Jess Vandenbush, all the way from Idaho in the United States of America.
I did my first 5K when I was 34 years old, 35. Just got into running then, and I immediately loved it.
Now, Jess is an accomplished trail runner, an ultra distance runner. She's also someone who doesn't believe in taking shortcuts. She doesn't believe in remaining in your comfort zone. Everything that she is about expanding that comfort zone, finding who you really are, taking the time to do things properly. Whether that is listening to some good music on an LP record. Anyone else remember those? I'm sure plenty of you do. None of this quick fix modernity. This doesn't mean she's some nutcase living in a teepee halfway up a mountain. Far from it. But it does mean that her passion for running, for distance, for personal growth development, and for time, space, and nature has really taken her down some very interesting trails, both the ones that she's run, the ones in her life, and also the ones that have led her to do something that seems incredibly contrary, but yet could be just brilliant. And that is launching a specific, niche, beautifully produced, artistic trail running and ultra running magazine available on quarterly subscription in the heart of a global pandemic. It sounds nuts, but actually it's a beautiful thing. And this conversation is kind of about that magazine, which is called Eat Clean, Run Dirty. But frankly, that's just a stepping off point for so much more. If you love your running, your distance, your trail, your nature, good food, finding and taking time for yourself, then this conversation is just going to be for you. It was a real joy catching up with Jess again, and I hope you enjoyed this podcast as much as I've enjoyed making it. As ever, this show is brought to you by 33 Fuel Natural Sports Nutrition, who also do not believe in taking shortcuts, not with ingredients, not with the quality of what goes into your body, not with any quick fix potions, lotions, or crazy chemical nonsense in your sports nutrition. Instead, everything that 33 Fuel does is from the heart, is from nature, is to give you and your body the absolute best. It tastes great, it works amazing, and it's great value too. What is not to love? Get yourself over to 33fuel.com and get stuck into some of that great product there when you have finished listening to this awesome conversation with Jess Vandenbush. Thank you so much for coming on the show again, twice in 2 days. And really can't apologize enough for the technical errors, all my own fault yesterday. But thank you for making the time again today. I'm really happy to dig into all of the great stuff we went into yesterday and much more.
I'm excited. Well, we are endurance athletes after all. So we're just endurance podcasting is what this is. We've been training for this.
Just going to be 10 hours of just keeping going. You know, this is like getting to the end of whatever your race is and doing that thing where someone does the running back to the start and doing it again. This is that version for podcasting.
Oh no, those are so terrible. But yes, it's just like that.
So look, the big news is that amid a pandemic, in this digital age, as people are not even going to offices anymore, as our lives are being turned upside down, you have launched a print copy, limited edition, highly focused, high production values, beautiful magazine called Eat Clean, Run Dirty, along with the whole movement that you have going around it with the podcast and everything else. What made you think to do that? Because honestly, it's a beautiful product you've got, but I don't think any marketing agency in the world would ever have dreamed up that now is the time to launch a magazine that goes to people's houses in the post.
Yes, it is completely defying convention, I would say, as no marketing. If somebody was in a marketing meeting at a big publishing company and they said, look, we're going to spend a lot of money to make sure that the paper feels gritty, and we're going to get ordinary people to post pictures and stories to include in it, and we're not going to have any advertising, and we're going to give stories like 15 pages, we're going to have a connect the dots of Anton Kripika. I think that they might lose their job if they went into a meeting talking about these things. But I went ahead and doubled down on it because I thought it was exactly what we needed during a global pandemic. And most of what feels good doesn't make a whole lot of sense anyway. So I thought, why not? Why not? We had to give it a try. I feel like, especially during the pandemic, it's been wild, like completely unpredictable. And a lot of people have been shut into their homes, and some places they don't even allow folks to recreate outside. There's places where people got in trouble for going running outside, that legitimately. And so bringing a bit of trail and their friends and their community that they love so much to their mailbox through the post, I think was exactly right on time, even though it defied any logical person's ideas.
Well, I mean, I think a part of this is born in your backstory and something that I think a lot of people will relate to, because you've got a serious track record in trail running and ultra running, and particularly as you go into the long distances, that is far from rational behavior, yet there's something incredibly beautiful and addictive in it.
Right. Thank you. So a little bit of background on me with the running. I'm not like a super athlete. I haven't been running my whole life or anything like that. I did my first 5K when I was 34 years old, 35. Just got into running then, and I immediately loved it. And I saw people running through the forest with reckless abandon. And I had never thought that that was a thing people did. And I wanted to do that too. And I got into trail running, and these folks would get together, run in the dirt and drink beers after. And I immediately fell in love with everyone and jumped all in. I went from 5K to half marathon to 50K to 100 miles, all like within a year and a half. I did my first 100-mile race after I'd been only running a year and a half. And right away, I really connected and just found a home in that community. And it really changed my life. And I do all I can to be in service of it. So, when it is signing up for example, signing up for that 100-mile race, that first one, that defied logic. There's no reason that I should be able to do this. I don't have any great genetics where I have a history of running people in my family or anything like that. I'm just some lady who was living in Ohio and thought, I want to see how far I can take it. I want to play with the edges. I want to really challenge myself. I know it's going to be hard, but that's part of what is great about it. And I think that, being able to pull off that first race and then, getting harder and harder races after that, doing mountain races, doing them alone, no crew, no pacers, no support, that kind of attitude of, let's see what we can do with it. Don't tell yourself no. And, if you're the one who gets to be the gumption, the drive, the grit, the determination, you want to invest in yourself and your own goals and your dreams, that kind of attitude, what I learned from running is basically it's the same thing with the magazine. I thought it defies all logic. I shouldn't be able to do this. This makes no sense. We have no money. I have no training. I don't know what I'm doing, but I know what it looks like. And I think that we really need it. And so I'm going to give it my best shot because I think our community deserves it. Just like with the running and stuff. So a lot of really cool lessons taken from ultra running to get into the magazine. But yeah, as a background, so people understand, I am not a champion athlete and I am not a publishing person. I've never taken a graphic designs course, but I've designed this entire magazine and I just figure it out as I go. And that has done pretty well for me so far.
Well, it would be easy for anybody listening who hasn't yet seen the magazine, and I'm lucky to have a copy of it sat here, to think that, well, perhaps this is going to look a bit like a random scrapbook and musings. Now, we both have a shared magazine geek history in that we grew up obsessing about the things we obsessed about and read magazines about them and found some sort of validation and learning and growth in there, obviously in a pre-internet era. And I took it as far to go into it professionally. That's what got me into journalism originally, my former career. And, I love magazines and that whole experience of it. And honestly, what you have created, and, you talked about your own story of, buying these random magazines, paying extra to get the French edition of GQ just to see what it looked like, or Japanese fashion magazines, or whatever it may be. This is a beautifully laid out, designed project that you've put together with Eat Clean, Run Dirty. And the only thing at the moment, because mine's still in the post, I have the digital copy. You talk about the paper, the feel. I really think if anyone's a cycling nut out there, then they may be familiar with a magazine called Rouleur. And this is much more in that sort of vein. How long did you, or how did you come to the idea of, it really feels so clear that you knew what you wanted and that's what's actually come out. But how did you get that clarity of vision and the connection between the subject, trail running at its heart, and the feel and look and the way the product would turn out in the end?
I wanted it to look like an art magazine. And that cycling magazine that you mentioned is a beautiful magazine. And yeah, I am a kind of a magazine nerd. I like to go to the bookstore and just like touch them and feel them and understand them. Like what is it that I like about this? Is it how it's a different size? It's slightly smaller than the others or larger, or how does the cover feel? How does it smell? And part of too, while we're talking about print, right? Like I get before people get the magazine and they're reaching out to me to subscribe, some of them ask if there's a digital subscription that they can have because, they use their Kindle or they want to decrease their use of paper, things like that. And I understand that. And I am quite an environmentalist. However, there's an intimacy that comes with having this piece of work in your hands. It's right away. It's an experience, right? And that's part of the vision is I want you to have a certain emotional reaction when you hold this magazine in your hands. I've made it for you. I made it for the community. It's not just mine, it's ours. And so with that comes this commitment to making it something beautiful, just like the community is. And I don't want it to be shiny. The pages are not thin. It's quite heavy, this magazine. And that's some of the things I've learned along the way. So it's pretty expensive to mail to everybody. But once again, defying any logic, anything that a corporation, if they were making a magazine, they would throw out the weight of this immediately. And it's got like a thick cardstock cover and the pages are matte and a little bit gritty. That way you can write on them. I'm somebody who likes to highlight stuff or write notes in the margins of books and things like that. And so I want people to be able to do that. Or some of the pages are interactive where there's activities or you can paint it. The other thing too is, how the colors come off the pages is really important. There's a lot of artwork here. It's a very visual experience too, which you won't find. There's pretty pictures in some running magazines, but this is trail and ultra. And a lot of us do these endurance runs because it's a way we can see the world. It's a way we can be outside and experience nature. And travel is something that we all have in common too. And so it's not just about running, it's about those things. And that's a very visual experience, right? We run to get the view. The vistas are earned. And that shows in the pages of this magazine as well. So yeah, as to the people who ask if they can have a digital copy, there's so much lost in that. You are one of the very special, like 2 people in the whole world that has received a digital copy of this magazine, because otherwise it's top secret. And that's because you're so far away to mail things to. It takes like a month. It's on the boat somewhere.
Mine is on its way in the post somewhere. But again, these things, it doesn't feel like instant gratification should be at the heart of this. It's not at the heart of running distance. It's not at the heart of running trail. Whether your magazine takes a week or 6 weeks to show up, it kind of doesn't matter because it's going to show up and it's going to be an event. And something I love about actually getting to a magazine, well, first of all, there are very few that I would even bother buying anymore. And I think a lot of people feel that way. You only have to look at the magazine stand, which effectively doesn't exist in most shops anymore.
Yeah.
But this is a bespoke piece. And when you're in a magazine or a printed book, you can't swipe right, you can't swipe left, you can't connect and swap it for something else. You can't be distracted by the internet. You literally must be present, much like your trail running.
Yeah, it's kind of like active meditation, right? It's, your mind in motion, just like your body's in motion on the trail, your mind is in motion, and you can really be present with the stories and the sentiments and the things in the magazine. And there's something too that there's like this legitimacy that comes with being in print, right? And with all the other running magazines out there and endurance magazines, they really didn't kind of tell the rest of the story that is like the heart and soul of the sport. Sometimes they brush on the surface, and there's been some pretty good articles published. It's not all a bunch of malarkey, but a lot of times it's to sell magazines or to sell ads or to sell ideas or some kind of activation, right? Like they want you to click on this or do that, and what I want people to do when they get this magazine is, number one, spend time with it. I want them to feel compelled to share it with their friends or their family. I want them to bring it to the pub after a run or bring it to a trailhead and pass it along after they've read it, if they feel so inclined. But most people I've heard, want to hoard them, and they've asked for back issues. I've had a lot of people get the magazine, ask for a digital copy, get the magazine after told no, and then buying copies for their friends because, they were like, I think the same, when I see it, it's a magazine for us. It's, we have one now. It's something really special. I think too, that I want people, when they see it and when they have it in their hands, to feel compelled to create something for themselves. Whether it's, create new big trail or, trail goals or adventure goals, travel goals like that. It's to get out in the world and meet new people that they read about in these pages. Or I want it to compel them to create art of their own, maybe poetry, maybe an article in here inspires them to make their own thing about it, or, bring along little watercolors. So the next time they have a long run, they sit down and take a break and paint a picture of that waterfall that they go run to, or to create music, different things like that. The things that kind of in and around what inspires them around running. I think that running is a romantic thing, and it's a creative thing then too. And so whether it's making food for your friends or family, or it's playing guitar around the campfire, like all those things are a part of trail and ultra running. And this is a magazine that covers those things too.
A forum and a melting pot where all of those things can take place. Because I think something you'd said previously was that magazines that you were reading or used to read or liked just weren't covering running, trail running as you saw it. And that point that so much of the focus, because a magazine needs a headline, a cover, a star, a this, a that, where you're focusing often on kind of 1%, whereas it's the other 99% who make up what's going on in the race. And that's not just the runners. Who clears the trail? Who looks after the land? Who reforested that forest? Who is at your aid station? Who organizes the race? Who fixed the permit? Like, everyone involved, and yet a tiny prism appears in the media.
Yeah. And so that's why the greater picture of this is I'm creating a media empire, Warren, of ultra trail running coverage, kind of like the NBC Wide World of Sports, only for trail running. As a young girl, I wanted to be a journalist and a forest ranger. So this is kind of a combination of, I just invented my own job, basically. So one of the big things that was happening in the States here was that finally it was the last straw where I couldn't take it anymore. I love magazines, but there was not a ultra trail running magazine that I felt represented me. There's a few out there and that have been around a while, but they don't get me hot and excited. I don't feel like it represents me. And at the same time that I was frustrated and, writing some letters to the editor or applying for jobs at the magazines or whatever, trying to like Trojan horse, make them better. There's a certain pretty big running magazine that comes out with the top 10 trail and ultra runners of the year. And they kind of announce them in a slow trickle, right? And it was so-and-so who won Lake Sonoma last year is, ultra trail running person number 5 of the year. And then so-and-so that won this other race in California is ultra runner number 2 of the year, and down the line. And there are a bunch of just elite athletes where in their little bio, it talked about their competitiveness and what big high prestige races they've won, typically in California. And there's so much more in the world. Not only is it they're not covering like 3/4 of the country, but they're only talking about the performances of it. They didn't mention how many races these people volunteer for as well while they're training for the, or they didn't talk about what things they were overcoming in pursuit of their goals. It was very superficial and very much of, just results driven. And I wanted to learn the rest of the story and what is going on, what is important. And there were some runners that I felt totally got just left to the wayside that were really doing amazing things. And at the time, there's a gentleman, his name is Walter, and I ran quite a few races with him during that year. I think before the 2019 or 2020, it's all blurred. It was 2019. Yeah. The pandemic has caused me not to know what day it is anymore. But Walter was setting out to run a 100-mile race every week of the whole year. And a lot of us in the community got to run with Walter because he literally was at every single 100-mile race that we had in the United States. I think there's like 123 100-mile races. Walter ran 100 of them, 52 of them, right? And I thought it was a pretty big ordeal. And to watch him week after week show up and run 100 miles and actually do well. He won some of them, even though, and they're not little easy races. He wasn't doing little circles in the parking lot, kind of on pavement stuff. He was running some really formidable, rugged mountain races week after week and doing so in a van with his lovely partner, Jackie. And it inspired me, even more of like what's possible, and I wanted to know, what is he dealing with, like what does his feet look like? Like all this, and I went to cover his last race of the year. He was in Arizona and he was running this race called Across the Years, and it was going to be his last one. But because his knee hurt him the week before, he had to run 200 miles at this race. And it was on New Year's, and he ran like 200 and some odd miles in like 40 hours or something like that. It was just it was incredible in a 1-mile circle. And I went to pace him or run with him for the last, I think 13 or so miles. Me and my friend Lee Connor went to join him and celebrate this huge achievement of running 100. He broke a world record. And we were the only people there at the finish line besides one other guy that had been. The race director didn't even come.
Wow.
The race director didn't even come. Not only was there no media, but like the race director didn't even come to shake his hand. There was a couple of us. I think there was 4 people, but actually it turns out, and Walter he's amazing. And he did not do it for attention at all. He did it for him. He did it for all the right reasons. And that's pretty typical of the finish line of a pretty rugged 100-mile race anyway, is that there's like maybe 2 or 3 people there. And it's very like low, subdued exuberance, right? But I was there to take a picture and to, kind of honor that achievement. And I thought at that moment, that's it. Like I don't have a choice anymore. I have to cover this the way it deserves to be covered and tell the stories of the people. And so that's where I decided for sure, I'm starting against all logic. I'm starting this magazine to cover the sport that so many people pour their hearts into. And that is, how Eat Clean, Run Dirty got started.
And there's so many, like a trailhead, so many different avenues we could take off down here. But let's go with the name. Eat Clean, Run Dirty. Eating clean, I can certainly empathize with. 33 Fuel has a pretty strong part of that in our DNA. Running dirty, well, if it wasn't for running dirty, then 33 Fuel would not exist, because if I had not been, and Erica the same, if we had not been as ill as we were on ordinary, what's so-called sports nutrition, we would have not have done what you've done with the magazine and gone, do you know what? There's nothing here we like. Let's make something we do like. And then off you go on a journey. You've got Eating Clean, you've got Running Dirty. Tell us more about the title, because I think there's a lot more than just 4 words in this.
That's a perfect thing, Warren, is that's how we got connected. And really, 33 Fuel got started because there was literally nothing you could buy. Like, you had no other choice. You had to do it because there's no option. So it's a similar way. Like, there's this huge hole in what's available to you, and you have no other choice but to do the work for it, right? And Eat Clean, Run Dirty is a similar way. So Eating clean is healthy eating. It's making sure that you put that like healthy nutrition in your body, especially if you're running and stuff like that, from chia seeds and whole foods, right? Not any crap, like no maltodextrin, no weird chemicals. Like, our bodies are not a science experiment. And so being mindful of that, right? We talk about like, why isn't this digital, and getting all those notifications on your phone and stuff like that. It's similar to that with the food. Like, if you're putting garbage into your mind, with these ads, or getting lost in this YouTube video like rabbit hole of watching cat videos and all, our brains are easily distracted. And just like junk food, junk other things are attractive to our brains for a reason. Like, they are good at distracting us, or junk food is good at tasting good. High fat, salty, sugary things are delicious to our brains for like biological reasons, but they're not good for us. And so Eat Clean is kind of all encompassing of that. It's not just eating whole, healthy foods. It's taking time to make food. You get a lot of there's so much more in a meal when you make it and prepare it yourself, or you grow the food yourself, or you make it for friends and people that you care for. And to bring it full circle into running, when you go into an aid station and there's like delicious homemade potato soup there in the middle of the night, that nourishes more than just macros. It feeds your soul, and it feels good to be able to make that for people too. So eating clean means that too. It also means like meditating, read good books, poetry, like art, expose yourself to music, get good rest, like all the things that you put into your body to, be a whole healthy person and be the best that you can. So that's eating clean. And then Running Dirty is trail running, because that's my thing. I love running trails, especially, rugged single track out in the middle of nowhere, wildlife, run dirty, right? But then it also means like being messy in the pursuit of your goals. It means going after big things and not worrying about what you look like doing it. It means, like let yourself be messy in the pursuit. Be bold and be brave in whatever you're going after. Don't worry about what other people think of you. Worry about how it feels to go after big things. And sometimes it's going to get really hard, and that's part of it. And just like in a race, things can bottom out. Things can seem terrible, seem like you can't go on any further, but it changes and it gets better. You just have to put one foot in front of the other and keep moving forward. And, that is Running Dirty. So that's kind of sums up everything that you can hope to find in this magazine is things about eating clean. So sometimes there's, a book recommendation or in the latest issue of the magazine, there's some craft cocktails that are non-alcoholic, treat your body right. And, running dirty, there's race reports in there. And every issue, actually, there's a special feature in each issue where there's a race that we cover, and we have 3 reports from 3 different people. And those race reports aren't as much of how did your training go from an elite athlete, but it's more of how did it feel to be in your skin at that race. And it's not just runners that are writing the report. Sometimes the race director writes a report. Sometimes a volunteer writes a report. Sometimes the winner of the race writes a report. Sometimes somebody who didn't even finish writes a report. You get a pretty good idea of a race when you get it from 3 different perspectives. And, that's another thing. And what are their goals, and people being vulnerable. That's another thing too. I'm so sorry. I'm going off on all these tangents, but the beauty of being vulnerable, that's also running dirty, right? Like telling people what you're going after and, having that accountability to it, sharing what your struggle is, sharing what your weakness is. What are you overcoming? And that's something we share in the magazine. And I think that helps other people too. When you share what your vulnerable things are, that helps other people be seen and know they're not alone. And I think that's an important part about it too, where in some other magazines, they only talk about the glossy stuff, or some of these trail running movies, they don't show the parts where you're barfing in the bushes. They only show the happy finish line scene, and we'll cover the barfing parts too.
And now, a quick word from our sponsors. The most excellent, most wonderful, most natural 33 Fuel Natural Sports Nutrition. Just remember, when you're looking for the best possible nutrition products for your performance, your health, and your well-being, get yourselves over to 33fuel.com. The stuff doesn't cost any more than ordinary sports nutrition. The difference is it's made with transformatively better ingredients. You've got tastier results, you've got better results, you've got healthier results. So look, get yourselves over to 33fuel.com. And now, let's get back to the show. Got to have the full spectrum, and a key part of that, and it comes to the vulnerability as well, is the DNF. Happens to everyone. It's going to happen at some point. Like, you can't get good at something without getting it wrong sometimes. For whatever reason, you can't learn without overstepping the line. And the DNF, for one way or another, is overstepping the line. There's a vulnerability that's not talked about very often or celebrated, yet it's a common experience to anyone who wants to expand their boundaries and, push themselves.
Yeah, I've to the people that listen to the podcast, I've had some DNFs that I've shared quite extensively. I've even brought a recorder with me and recorded the DNF, but it's being honest about it. Right. And so that comes in 2 parts, Warren. It's, if you're not failing at something, you're not trying hard enough. If you're only doing sure things, if you're only doing stuff you can finish, then you're not going to grow. You really have to play with the edges. And it's when you play with the edges of what you're capable of, it's where you expand them. And so that's a big part of it, and talking about that and whatever that means to different individuals, but also being honest with yourself about those DNFs, right? If somebody writes a story for the magazine, I've had people write a story and I've had to give them notes and come back and challenge them. Like, is it, was it really that your feet hurt and you had blisters and all this? Or is it that you just took awful care of yourself and you gave up? Be honest about it. I want you to share the real story. What's the real story here? And that's it. That goes a long way. Being honest with those things. Why aren't you, if you didn't accomplish your goal, what really was it? What went into that? Did you train hard enough? Or did you just half-ass it? Or is it that you literally were in deep water and over your head and you tried something crazy and you didn't make it, but darn it, you learned, there's so many different things that go into it. And I've had both kinds. I've had DNFs where I wasn't strong enough that day, or I didn't believe that I could do it. I really didn't believe that I could. And so I gave up. I've had a DNF where I gave up, and it broke my heart. And I've had DNFs where the search and rescue detained me, wouldn't let me go any further, and protected me from myself. I've had both of them, the full spectrum. And
that's the one where you come into the aid station and they say, "How are you?" And even though you can't see straight and you realize you probably look like a waxwork that's about to fall over, you go, "I'm fine." And hope that they won't notice and go, "No, you need to come to the medical tent, not continue."
Right. Yeah. And for that, actually, that one, if you're interested, I recorded it. There's a podcast. It was the Bighorn 100 in Wyoming, a hard rock qualifier. I'm trying to run hard rock eventually. That's my big crazy goal, is to run hard rock. And, so I was hallucinating pretty extensively and very dehydrated. I had stopped sweating. I was sunburnt. It was awful. It was like 10 a.m. the next day. And a man was running towards me on the trail at the race, which at races, this is not the kind of place that somebody should have been running towards me. And I started hollering out to him, like, "Hey, watch out for those deer," because I thought there were deer like running across the trail. And he was like, there's no deer here. and I heard a walkie-talkie, and he was answering to the people on it, and he said, "Hey, I found her." And I was like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "Well, I brought you this water and these electrolytes. I'm a doctor, and we've been looking for you." And I was like, "I have to go. I have to get to the next aid station." He's like, "No, you're there. It's okay." And I was like, "No, I don't have time for this. I have to keep going." And he's like, "No, you're just going to sit down." And when I sat down, somebody came up to me and they pricked my finger, and they took my blood. I didn't realize what they were doing. And they're like, "What's your name? Where are you? How old are you?" What? And then, I was answering their questions, and then they're like, "Your blood sugar, it's 40. And I was like, "Oh, is that good? Did I pass the test?" And they're like, "No, we think we might give you a helicopter ride." Eat sandwiches while we talk about it. It was just, I don't know. It was a blaze of glory, and that's how, to bring it all out there. I have big goals in running and things like that, and they might not always be logical. Like the magazine, launching a print only magazine that is really boutique and niche during a global pandemic where races are canceled, is not logical. But be bold and brave in the pursuit of it, and like go all out. This isn't practice life. Like this is not practice life. This isn't a training run. This is it. This is it right now. And there's no use in waiting for the perfect time. And for those people listening to this, and whether you're a triathlete or you're a cyclist, thinking about riding your bike across South America, or you're just thinking about signing up for your first 50K, like this is not practice life. It's time to get started. What are the things that you want to experience, and just go after it. And that hopefully is one of the other things that the magazine provokes, is people to just go after their goals. Don't wait to be ready. Nobody's ever ready. I think that's the secret. When you started 33 Fuel, did you feel like you were ready? Did you feel well prepared and like you knew everything you needed to know?
Yeah, I knew everything about business, food production, direct e-commerce. Yeah, a lot. I mean, thankfully, we'd spent 20 years studying it. No, we were completely unprepared, and we opened with a one-page website, and it went gangbusters on day one after we got a tiny mention in a newspaper, and we were running stuff to the post office in sacks while sticking labels on it till 3 a.m. in the morning. So, yeah, totally prepared. You've got to start, right? You've got to take that jump and start, and occasionally someone might give you a helicopter ride, and occasionally you'll have moments of glory and great finishes. There'll be sprained ankles and injuries along the way. But on your, I'm going to pick up on blood sugar here.
Yeah.
Well, something that we talked about the other day was where in the world of sports and nutrition, and in fact the world of nutrition in general, um, people are sometimes accused of having too much of a plant-based bias or being too vegan or whatever it might be by some elements. But one of the sort of points against that is, well, big broccoli does not have much of a PR budget when you put it up against, the big food companies and all that. And I think there was something you were championing, because in terms of blood sugar and maintaining good eating clean on the trail in every sense, everything you put into your body, make it good, whatever it's what you're feeding your mind with, what you're feeding your body with. You had some beautiful tips for sweet potatoes and avocados actually on the run. And I just wanted to go into those a bit, because I think that sort of creativity and thought, too many people, particularly guys, I think it's the way our brains work, or don't in that case, go, right, I'm doing sport, I need nutrition, therefore I must need sports nutrition. That leads to a load of products. And as Erica and I found with sports nutrition products, that leads you to eating a load of ingredients you would never normally touch with a barge bowl. You wouldn't feed them to your dog if you liked your dog, right? Yet suddenly, in this context of I'm doing sport, I need this sports nutrition, it made sense. Like, why not just open your mind a little more? How do you get back to whole foods in that state? And that's what we tried to do with 33 Fuel. But you're doing it right there. The sweet potato and the avocado things. Tell me more, because I think they were brilliant.
Oh yeah, thank you. So one of the things I think that is happening, along with, all these distractions of social media and things like that, advertising, right? Advertising is made to make you think that you need this thing, that you're missing something. And the only way you can get that thing that you need is to buy this stuff, buying stuff. And we all buy stuff. I mean, you need to buy things, right? But that goes a long way. And sometimes it seems unattainable to eat a healthy diet or this eating clean, because it's expensive, to go to a fancy organic grocery store and, that has great lighting and, wine night and stuff like that. That is nice, but you don't need to be fancy or have a big budget to eat healthy and well. And really, you just need to get as simple as you can with what you're putting in your body. It's easy. And it's stuff that you can just grow yourself, really, too. And so, kind of covering that. And one of the things, in the magazine is we talk about food. And in an issue of the magazine, I had Chef Allie, who is a ultra runner, pretty badass lady out of Michigan. She is also a chef, and she created some recipes around sweet potatoes and talked about how to bring sweet potatoes with you on the run, but then also ways to prepare sweet potatoes after your run. Just different, how can you incorporate the nutrition of a sweet potato before, after, and during your events. And sweet potatoes are like 75 cents each, maybe, depending on what store you go to. If you belong to a farm share, probably even less. Very affordable. And you can throw them in the oven. You can throw them in the oven while you're taking a shower or whatever. It doesn't take much. And smoosh it all up and maybe add a little bit of brown or cinnamon to it. And that has really good health benefits to it. Or add a little bit of natural maple syrup. That's sweet, but it's still good. Or even raw honey you could add to it, right? There's so many different ways. Or sea salt. I put sea salt literally on everything. But you just smoosh it up and put it in a little baggie and bring it with you on the run. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be expensive. But because sweet potato doesn't have an advertising budget, they just don't get the coverage. And so
they are not sponsoring the Super Bowl anytime soon.
No, they are not. They don't have, elite athletes wearing sweet potato, onesies and stuff like that. No, they've got no representation in the media, really. And so one of the cool things that, because Eat Clean Run Dirty is independent, and because we don't have these big advertisers that we're trying to, basically appease, we can have things like a 5-page spread about sweet potatoes. And we can have whatever kind of pictures we want along with it too. And we can have, a whole thing about avocados and putting avocados in your drop bags, or putting mangoes in the pockets of your shorts. It can be all kinds of stuff, but because whole natural food that you just grow yourself in the garden and costs 15 cents for a seed packet, because there's not big money in it, the other magazines or news, stuff like that, the other media outlets aren't covering it, and aren't covering it nearly with the justice that it deserves. Sometimes if you read a cooking magazine, you read Rachel Ray or something like that, Jamie Oliver, they do great things with eating whole foods and they'll talk about recipes, but, definitely not in any kind of sports magazine are you going to find stuff like that. And that is part of what's so punk rock about Eat Clean Run Dirty magazine, is we can literally do whatever we want. And
people say, exactly like you said, eating healthy or eating organic, well, it's expensive. And it depends what you look at. I mean, you don't have to be going to buy it all in Whole Foods or Planet Organic. You don't really have to be buying organic to get the upgrades. That's the last 2% if you really must. And you don't need it on everything.
Mm-mm.
But look at the nutrition per pound or dollar, however you want to slice it. Sweet potato versus a candy bar. There's just so much more nutrition in the sweet potato, even compared to a white potato. The more color in the vegetable, the more nutrients it's got. Just like get the red cabbage instead of the ordinary cabbage. Get the sweet potato instead of the regular potato. They probably cost less because they look weird and no one wants them. And you just tripled or quadrupled your nutrient intake for nothing.
Yes.
But I love that, smushing up the sweet potato, mixing it up with a few things, putting it in a baggie, tearing off the top with your teeth, squeezing it in. What a great way to do that. And yeah, not something you're going to be finding on your major running website or magazine anytime soon. But you have to be able to give these things space. I love it that you called it punk rock, because it is. It's something where you're just standing up and doing the thing you want to do, which also, if anyone is getting the latest issue, 15 or 20 odd pages devoted to the poem Invictus with beautiful images. That's something that you're not going to find anywhere else too soon either. But for anyone who's looking for a poem to get them through endurance, I don't know if there is a better one than Invictus.
No, actually, and one of my very best friends in the whole world, her name is Lee Connor, and Invictus is the poem that she repeats to herself in the late hours of a race. Some people have mantras or whatever. She repeats that poem to herself, and that's how I was exposed to it. And it is a perfect endurance, athlete poem. It fits trail and ultra running so perfectly. And that article, the photographs, right, that are accompanied to that poem is a beautiful photo essay by a gentleman named Matt Cecil. He is out of British Columbia, and he goes to the Orcas Island 100-mile course. Orcas Island is a race and an island off the coast of Seattle in the San Juan Islands. And it's a 100-mile race with 27,000 feet of elevation gain, and they don't allow pacers or anything like that. And there's about 100 people that sign up for this race each year, and it feels quite like family. And Matt hides out on the course and takes pictures. He takes a picture before the race. He takes a picture in the middle of the race and after the race. And he calls this photo essay 100-Mile Eyes. And at the finish, at the ceremony of handing out buckles and things like that at the race, they show the before and after photos on a big screen in a small movie theater in this harbor town on the island. It's really something special. But what's so moving about it is the expression on people's faces. If you look at those photos, Warren, you can see the sparkle in people's eyes. You would not know that they were in the middle of climbing Mount Constitution for the second or third time, and that there was just 2 ice storms they endured to get there. They look joyful. And that is something about it, right? We are doing this hard, difficult thing together, and we have common goals. And even though we're so different from one another, we have this thing in common. And something that I'm going to wax poetic a bit about it. Something that I love about ultra running is it doesn't matter what job you have. It doesn't matter how much money you have or what family you came from. We're all the same out on the trail. It is a great equalizer. And what matters out there is your character and your heart and your perseverance. And, did you help somebody when they were in need? Are you kind to the environment? Did you thank the volunteers? Just different stuff like that. How did you prepare for this? Like, were you brave in the pursuit of this? And, to have those people come together. And so part of why I gave like 15 pages or so to this photo essay that no other magazine that I've ever seen would do such a story, is because I wanted folks to see, even though such distress or duress that people are under, there are, people who are overcoming adversity, but they're joyous in it. And also the transformation that comes, and to see the before and after photos of people's faces and their expressions. I think if you're wondering about a rugged 100-mile race and you want to know why people do it or who is doing it or what it's for, I think that you can learn a whole lot about it by the expressions on the faces of the people in Matt's photo essay. It's quite striking and beautiful. And then, to pair it with Invictus, to me, that's just perfect. And that's the kind of magazine that I want to read. And, like I said, because I couldn't find it, I thought I'd just go ahead and put it together for us, really.
Well, I think for anyone out there who has either an inkling or an addiction to the worlds of trail endurance, pushing boundaries, ultra running, then a copy of Eat Clean, Run Dirty through the letterbox is kind of like delivering a slice of that to you every quarter, and may also help if anyone out there has ever struggled with the other common problem that may happen to many of us in these sports, is where close family or friends kind of wonder what the heck it is you're actually doing with your time for 6 hours going for a run on a Sunday, and why you're always limping around the house or grumpy or nervous before a race or wondering exactly what to pack in your pack, all of those things. This, showing them a copy of this could go some way to helping them understand why you do it and your affliction, in the same way that I tried to give my parents a skateboarding magazine as a kid to tell them why the heck I didn't want to go to the tennis club anymore because I preferred this skateboarding thing.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think, I see a lot of people. I volunteer at aid stations and races and things like that too. And you get a different perspective of a race through that. And there's a lot of friends and family that come along, and sometimes they wait in their car. Sometimes they come out and try and help at the aid station. I've been waiting with nervous wives, with a lawn chair and a pack of weird Band-Aids and blister care, and then being terrified of when their partner comes in the aid station, they have no idea what to do, or, things like that. Or I've also had friends who ran all the time and their partners didn't understand why they were always gone. And you can't take them with you if, unless they want to be a runner too. You can't take them with you, but they can be involved in your running somehow. And I think that this is a way, if you showed them this magazine and you wanted to try to put into words and thoughts and things like that, like what it is that you're running for and why, and who you're with and what you're doing while you're out there all that time. And like basically where that sparkle in your eyes comes from when you're climbing up a mountain like that. I think that you could share with somebody who's not even a runner this magazine, and they would understand. They would be able to see what it is that you're doing. This is a way to kind of invite them to the trail with you without them having to be there. It's showing them what it is that you're doing while you're out there. And I think that's something special too. And the magazine isn't just for runners. It's for your family. It's for volunteers. It's for people who do trail work. It's for people who just like the outdoors or like big goals or like nice magazines with pretty pictures in them. um, it's, I think it would appeal to a whole lot of people. But yeah, I think especially it's a way to show the people that care about you and that you care about what it is that you're doing while you're out there.
Which, I mean, not only could you be helping people eat better, enjoy their sport, get a fix through the door when maybe they can't get a fix, feel it, touch it, smell it, interact, meditate, just generally become all-round finer human beings. You could be reducing the divorce rate too.
It's possible. Yeah, we could have tips in here on how to be a better partner while you're training for your next big race. I think too that it is actually too something where if you're hurt and you're laid up and you can't be running, I think that this is a way to feel like you're still involved and out there while you can't be out on the trail. I think that also, I think it makes like a really, I'm a little biased, but I think it would make a really personal, beautiful gift for people that are helping you accomplish your goals. So, a lot of people who do sign up for these big events, you might have crew that come help you along the way and pacers or a coach, things like that, people that help you accomplish these things. And so a lot of folks are looking for some kind of thing to give as a gift, and sure, a fifth of whiskey might be a nice thing to give them, or some craft beer, but you could also gift them a subscription to the magazine. And I think that, along with whatever else you were doing to kind of show them, thank you for being a part of my journey and my goals. I feel like that would make a really nice gift if you're not sure what to get somebody that's really helped you along the way or been a mentor to you. I think it's something special for that. And I think too, it says something. So something in the magazine, if you look at the cover, there is a flag on the cover of the magazine as part of the price tag. And it's a pride flag with a Jolly Roger on it. And part of that too, and on it, the message underneath says inclusive and independent. And that's another message. And people who read the magazine have taken that image of the flag and printed it. They've printed it on hats. They've printed it to make flags of their own to hang up at aid stations or to put on their bib or something like that. Eat Clean Run Dirty is a community more than it is anything else. It's a tribe. And, that flag represents the rainbow represents nature and the full spectrum of it, right? It's not just eat the rainbow, like we're talking about nutrition. It's about everybody's welcome here. If Eat Clean Run Dirty, in the world of magazines, Eat Clean Run Dirty is the Sunday supper of running magazines. And at this Sunday supper, there's a spot for everybody at our table. Everybody's always welcome at our house. And that really does mean that means, and in the magazine, there's stories about fly fishing, and there's environmentalist drag queens, and there's everything in between, and there's a place for everybody in this magazine. And the Jolly Roger, we're not going to go pillaging like pirates or anything like that, but we're sure going to fight for it. We're going to fight for what's right. We're going to fight for our goals. And we're going to be rowdy if we need to. And so Eat Clean Run Dirty is it is a tribe. It is a community, but it's something I think that if you feel like you're a part of something special when you're reading this magazine, and, and also it's interactive. We want to hear your stories too. This isn't just we're telling you what to read or we're telling you how to be or how to train or anything like that. This is our magazine. And so, input and feedback. And, if you feel compelled to make something and contribute, we want to hear what that is too. We want to hear what you're doing. It is definitely a community. It's ours. And when somebody sees this on your coffee table, or somebody sees it sitting in your car or on your dashboard, or got it hanging around at the pub, I think it says something about you. I think it says something about like what's important to you, and you know what kind of community you're a part of. I think, I don't know. It's kind of like a calling card, I guess.
Well, there's a bit of identity in there, and there's a bit of more than a bit. There's a lot of soul, and I look forward to seeing more of them. I can't wait for my hard copy to be here. I'm excited to have seen the digital promo, but seriously, as you said, I don't think this should be something that people should be requesting on digital copy. It's just not. It's not in the vibe. But I think we've done a really nice job here of making this amazing curry. Like, it was pretty good yesterday. Great ingredients, really well put together. That was great. Then I screwed things up technically with doing the re-record. Even more has come out. Even more of those flavors, the richness.
Oh, yes.
It's been an absolute joy. Thank you so much for taking the time. Taking the time twice. Where do people get their hands on their Eat Clean, Run Dirty subscriptions, and as well as that, the podcast, all of the social media, because it's way beyond just the magazine.
Yeah, thank you. So if you visit eatcleanrundirty.com, it's a pretty simple website, but there's a button there where you can subscribe. And we send subscriptions out to everywhere in the world. There is just different postage for depending on where you are, but we have lots of readers in the UK and Finland. We have readers in Japan, Canada, the United States, South America, everywhere. So when you click through to subscribe, you just choose your country and it tells you about postage details there. And it's a quarterly publication. And as soon as I get your little notification, I'll handwrite out an envelope and mail you the letter as soon as I can. It takes a little longer to go across the Atlantic. Of course, it's on a slow boat somewhere, but it's coming your way. Also, eatcleanrundirty.com is a good place. We're also on Instagram and Facebook. So if you're on social media, I'm not a Twitter person, so we're not on there. But maybe Instagram is a really good place to find us. And Eat Clean Run Dirty is also a podcast. It's been a podcast since 2015, and some of the podcast episodes are about running or just me talking to interesting people. And some of the podcast episodes are me doing interactive deep dives with folks that wrote articles in the magazine. So it's kind of interactive. It's like an audio book version, but where I get to ask lots of extra questions and things like that. So it makes a really good companion. If you're into the magazine, you should be listening to the podcast, and the podcast is everywhere where you listen to podcasts. It should be there. If it's not, let me know, but it's in all the right places for sure. Yes. But eatcleanrundirty.com is a good place to get started.
Nice. So we will put all of those. They'll all be in the show notes. And just really good to catch up with you again in the beautiful wild outdoors there, which I must say, still being in central London, which, lovely place. Lived there for a very long time. I do like it very much. But I also like being able to escape London, and there has just not been a lot of that lately. Those trees, that fresh air, I can almost smell it from here.
Yes, Idaho. I'm in Idaho right now. Idaho is quite fantastic. And yes, I've been joining you from our backyard overlooking the foothills. And there's been lots of wildlife around here, but I get out. I'm one of those people that get outside every chance I can. So just this little bit, getting outside fresh air, I think it makes everybody feel better. Thank you so much, Warren, for having me on your show today. It was quite lovely.
Really, really enjoyed it, Jess, and really excited this time to have recorded the whole thing.
Yes, indeed. Thank you.
Jess Vandenbush, ladies and gentlemen, and Eat Clean, Run Dirty. And you only have two things to do now. One, get yourself over to eatcleanrundirty.com, or even use the links below to get there, and get yourself subscribed if you feel that that's something that's going to make your life more beautiful, more rounded, more natural, more enjoyable. Why not? Get stuck in. And do the same at 33fuel.com. Look, thank you so much for joining me on this show. Look forward to catching up with you on the next one.